When the world thought the scales of trade were too heavy to tilt, India stepped forward with courage, and the balance shifted. In the echo of negotiations, in the fire of determination, India has secured 3 great tariff discounts from the United States. This is no small victory. It is a testimony to the will of a nation that refuses to bow, refuses to falter, and insists on walking with its head held high. When we pause to reflect upon the first note of this great achievement, it becomes clear that the securing of 3 big tariff discounts is not merely a matter of reduced percentages or financial adjustments. It is the embodiment of dignity rising in the marketplace of global politics. India did not walk into those negotiations as a beggar asking for alms. It entered as a nation whose centuries of struggle and sacrifice had already carved a throne of self-respect upon the world stage. To secure concessions from a country like the United States, a power long accustomed to dictating terms rather than reconsidering them, is a sign that India has redefined its place in the dialogue of nations. Dignity is often mistaken for pride, but dignity is deeper, quieter, and more enduring. Pride can be shaken by insult or wounded by rejection, but dignity rests on the unshakable foundation of knowing one's worth. India, through this victory, proved that it knows its worth, and it forced others to acknowledge that worth as well. Consider how this moment unfolded in the corridors of negotiation, where every word carries the weight of billions. There is no room for weakness. Yet India's representatives carried the calm of resilience, the firmness of conviction, and the poise that comes when a people are secure in their identity. They did not waver under the gaze of pressure. They did not bend beneath the subtle threats of economic leverage. Instead, they reminded the world that true power lies not in how loud one speaks, but in how unwaveringly one stands. This victory whispers a lesson to every citizen. Dignity is not granted by others. It is claimed by refusing to accept less than fairness. Beyond the material gain, the discounts symbolize a shift in perception. For decades, developing nations were spoken of in the language of dependency. They were viewed as recipients of policy rather than participants in its making. But now, with India's assertive stand, that image is cracked and falling away. The tariff concessions mark more than economic relief. They signal that the tables are turning and that respect is being rebalanced. The United States, long the architect of global trade norms, has had to recognize that India is not just another voice. It is a voice impossible to ignore. That is the quiet dignity of this triumph, not a loud celebration, but a subtle acknowledgement that the balance of respect has shifted. For the Indian people, this moment speaks louder than figures ever could. It tells the farmer that his crop will find better prices in foreign markets. It tells the worker that the fruits of his labor will no longer be dismissed as cheap exports. It tells the youth that their nation's voice matters in rooms where the future is decided. The dignity of a country is built upon the dignity of its people, and this achievement has wrapped every citizen in a cloak of quiet confidence. It reminds us that respect at the global table reflects respect at home, and when a nation stands tall abroad, its people stand taller within themselves. Even more profound is the moral lesson it carries. Dignity is not only about how we demand to be treated, it is about how we insist on treating ourselves. India's stand in the negotiations was not rooted in arrogance, but in principle. By holding firm, by saying that fairness was not optional but necessary, India lived out the truth that self-respect is the foundation upon which all progress is built. For individuals listening to this story, there lies a mirror. When you refuse to undersell your worth, when you choose integrity over convenience, you too force the world around you to reckon with your value. This victory is not the end of a journey, but the opening of a wider road. Tariff discounts will ebb and flow. Agreements will be signed and re-signed, but the spirit of dignity once asserted can never be revoked. India has taught the world and reminded its own children that the measure of a nation, or a person, is not how much they can take, but how firmly they stand in declaring that they deserve to be treated with fairness, honor, and respect. When the second note of this achievement is examined, it reveals the undeniable strength of unity. The RIC alliance, Russia, India, and China, stands not as a fragile handshake of convenience, but as a convergence of mighty rivers, each with its own course, power, and depth, yet flowing together to form a force that can shift the contours of global politics. India's role in securing tariff discounts is not an isolated act. It is the product of belonging to a larger framework where nations share mutual respect, interdependence, and the understanding that no single power can dictate terms in an interconnected world. This alliance is not about domination, but about balance, about creating a counterweight to forces that have too long enjoyed unchecked influence. India's achievement in the tariff discussions reflects the strength that comes from standing not alone, but as part of a chorus of voices demanding fairness. The RIC alliance, though diverse in its political systems and historical perspectives, demonstrates that differences need not lead to division. Instead, diversity, when united under common purpose, becomes the very source of resilience. India's ability to walk confidently into negotiations with the backing of such an alliance gave it not just bargaining power, but also the moral assurance that it was representing more than itself. This moment shows that collaboration, when rooted in respect, multiplies the strength of each participant and magnifies their influence in the world arena. Think of unity as a shield. A single voice may be silenced, a solitary figure may be ignored, but a united front cannot be dismissed so easily. In the arena of trade, where economic giants loom large, India's participation in the RIC alliance has given it a shield strong enough to deflect pressures and demands that would have once seemed impossible to resist. It shows the wisdom of recognizing that no matter how strong a nation may be, strength is amplified when it flows together with the strength of others. India's success is proof that alliances are not signs of weakness, but declarations of shared determination. This unity is not confined to politics or economics. It is symbolic of a larger human truth. The RIC alliance illustrates that collaboration is not about erasing individuality, but about enhancing it. India did not lose its identity in the partnership. Rather, it became more visible, more assertive, and more capable because it had allies standing beside it. The tariff concessions are not just a win for India, but a victory for the principle that cooperation creates opportunities that isolation can never provide. In this lies a lesson for every community, every group, and every individual. When people stand together with shared purpose, they can alter the course of events, no matter how powerful the opposition may appear. Beyond geopolitics, the story whispers to ordinary lives. A student preparing for exams, a worker striving for fair treatment, a community pushing for justice. All are reminded that unity is the force that makes the impossible possible. Just as India, with its partners, created an undeniable presence on the global stage, so too can individuals, when they link hands with others who share their struggles and dreams, create change that no obstacle can suppress. Unity does not diminish the individual voice, it gives it resonance, carrying it farther and louder than it could ever travel alone. India's moment of triumph in these negotiations is thus more than a story of economic advantage. It is a living example of what humanity can accomplish when walls are set aside and bridges are built. The RIC alliance demonstrates that the future does not belong to those who seek to dominate, but to those who are willing to join hands in shaping a world where fairness is not an exception but a standard. In this unity, there is not just power but hope, hope that nations like people can find common ground, can choose cooperation over conflict, and can rise higher together than they ever could apart. The third note in this achievement speaks not of gifts bestowed, but of victories carved from resilience. The tariff discounts were not handed down from a position of generosity. They were earned through endurance, patience, and the unyielding spirit of a nation that knows the value of persistence. Resilience is not a loud declaration. It is a steady fire that continues to burn long after the winds of resistance have tried to extinguish it. India, through this accomplishment, has shown that resilience is sharper than any weapon and stronger than any threat. It is the quiet strength of holding steady when the storm rages, of waiting without despair, and of acting decisively at the right moment. In the complex and often ruthless arena of global trade, nations with less power are often expected to bend, to compromise beyond fairness, to accept the terms set by stronger hands. Yet India did not yield. Negotiations stretched, pressure mounted, and expectations loomed. But the nation's representatives chose the path of endurance. They did not break under the weight of demands, nor did they rush to accept unfavorable terms out of desperation. Instead, they waited, they calculated, and they stood their ground until the result they sought was achieved. That is the essence of resilience, not quick victories, but hard, fought triumphs earned through patience and unwavering resolve. This achievement carries a profound lesson for individuals as well. In our own lives, the challenges we face often come with demands for quick surrender. Obstacles press us to give up, circumstances tempt us to settle for less, and the world often seems ready to write off our efforts. Yet India's story reminds us that resilience is the art of staying the course. It is the power of refusing to accept less than we deserve, even when the easier path would be to retreat. Just as India secured concessions that seemed unlikely, so too can we secure victories in our personal battles if we have the courage to endure. Resilience is often mistaken for passivity, as though waiting is weakness. But true resilience is active. It is the discipline to prepare while waiting, the strength to endure without losing faith, and the wisdom to act when the right moment finally arrives. India did not merely wait for change to occur, it strategized, it negotiated, and it pressed forward until the outcome was reshaped. This active resilience is what transforms challenges into opportunities and difficulties into stepping stones. What makes resilience remarkable is that it is forged in silence. It is not always visible, not always celebrated, and not always acknowledged until the victory finally comes. The years of preparation, the months of patience, the countless discussions and strategic moves, all of these are hidden beneath the surface. But when the breakthrough comes, the world sees only the success, not the struggle. India's resilience in securing these tariff discounts is a reminder that the unseen effort is as valuable as the visible achievement. For the people of India, this moment is more than an economic win. It is proof that resilience works. Farmers, workers, entrepreneurs, and young dreamers can look to this example and find courage. If a nation can withstand global pressures and emerge victorious, then an individual too can endure life's storms and step into victory. Resilience transforms setbacks into setups, delays into preparation, and resistance into strength. The discounts may be measured in numbers and percentages, but the true value lies in the demonstration that endurance conquers. India has shown that patience need not mean surrender, that standing firm need not mean standing still, and that resilience is the bridge that carries us from struggle to success. This triumph is a quiet anthem that tells the world, the strong may press, the mighty may demand, but those who endure, those who persist, and those who refuse to bow will always carve their place in history. The fourth note of this victory is an anthem of possibility, a reminder that the future is not limited by the boundaries drawn by others, but is instead defined by the determination to break through them. The tariff discounts India secured are more than figures in trade agreements. They are symbols that ceilings can be shattered, barriers can be crossed, and obstacles that once seemed immovable can be overcome. This triumph whispers to every citizen that what seems impossible today can become inevitable tomorrow when pursued with vision and perseverance. It tells us that if a nation can bend the will of one of the world's strongest economies, then individuals too can bend the circumstances that appear to constrain them. India's achievement is not just about the present. It lights a torch for the future. It says to the young entrepreneur that new markets are open, and the dream of competing on the global stage is not just a distant fantasy, but a living possibility. It says to the farmer that crops grown with care and devotion will reach lands where they are valued, and that the sweat of their labor will find recognition beyond borders. It says to the student that the world no longer looks at India as a silent participant, but as a confident shaper of global decisions, and that their own ambitions can carry that same confidence forward. This is the power of possibility, when one success opens doors for 1,000 more, and when one victory becomes the foundation upon which countless others are built. Possibility is not a gift offered freely. It is a horizon revealed to those who dare to look beyond what is in front of them. India's stand in the negotiations is a declaration that the nation refuses to be bound by old limits. Where others might have said it is enough to accept what is offered, India demanded more. That demand was not born of greed but of belief, the belief that fairness is a right, and that progress is not a favor to be granted, but a destiny to be claimed. In this lies the truth that possibility is always waiting, but it reveals itself only to those willing to reach for it. For individuals, this truth is deeply personal. Every life faces ceilings, walls of doubt, barriers of circumstance, restrictions of opportunity. Yet India's story shows that those ceilings are not permanent. They can be broken through courage, vision, and persistence. The student facing failure, the worker caught in routine, the dreamer doubting their worth, all can find in this achievement a mirror reflecting their own power to push further. If a nation can challenge the norms of global trade, then an individual can challenge the limitations imposed on their own path. Possibility begins when we believe that the present does not define the future. The beauty of possibility is that it multiplies. One breakthrough inspires another, and one success creates the confidence for greater pursuits. India's victory is not the end of a journey, it is a spark. It signals that greater achievements are within reach, that the next negotiation can bring even more fairness, and that the road ahead is one of growth, not stagnation. For 1 billion people, it offers not just relief but vision. The vision that the future belongs to those who see beyond the immediate, and who dare to demand more from life. Possibility also carries responsibility. With new opportunities comes the duty to build wisely, to ensure that gains are not squandered, and to prepare for challenges yet to come. India has opened doors, but it must now walk through them with clarity and purpose. Likewise, for individuals, new possibilities must be met with discipline and determination. Opportunities are not enough. It is the way they are embraced that determines the measure of success. India's triumph is a reminder that the world is not fixed but fluid. What was once considered impossible has been made possible, and what lies ahead is limited only by the courage to imagine more. This achievement sings to us that the horizon is not a wall but a gateway, and that the future is not a destiny written by others, but a canvas waiting for our own strokes of determination and hope. The fifth note of this achievement speaks to a truth larger than economics, larger than politics, larger even than the borders that separate nations. It is about justice, about the universal yearning of humanity to be treated with fairness and dignity. The tariff discounts that India has secured are not simply adjustments in trade agreements. They are symbols of a deeper victory, that fairness is not a privilege to be begged for but a right to be claimed. They remind us that when voices rise together, when determination unites people and nations, even the most powerful must stop and listen. This moment is a reflection of humanity's eternal pursuit of justice. Throughout history, the powerful have tried to bend rules in their favor, to keep others bound to unequal terms, to create systems where advantage flows in only one direction. But time and again, the oppressed, the silenced, and the overlooked have risen to demand fairness. India's triumph is part of that larger story. It stands as proof that injustice, no matter how deeply rooted, can be challenged and changed when those who suffer under it find the courage to rise. The discounts are more than financial relief. They are a declaration that justice, though delayed, is never denied when pursued with unwavering conviction. What makes this note powerful is that it connects nations and individuals in the same heartbeat. The struggle for fairness in trade echoes the struggle for fairness in daily life. A worker demanding just wages, a student asking for equal opportunity, a community yearning for recognition, all are reflections of this same pursuit. When India stood firm against unfair terms, it was not just negotiating for itself. It was giving voice to every struggle where imbalance seeks to crush possibility. The message is clear. Justice is not something that must be granted by those in power. It is something that can be claimed by those who refuse to remain silent. The symbolism of this victory extends far beyond India's borders. Other nations watching closely have seen that fairness is attainable, that concessions can be won, that even the strongest powers must listen when faced with unwavering unity. This ripple effect inspires movements far and wide, reminding countries, communities, and individuals that they too can demand justice. In a world often fractured by inequality, moments like this shine as beacons, showing that fairness is not a dream too lofty but a reality within reach. Justice, however, is never handed over without resistance. It is always contested, always fought for, always earned through sacrifice and struggle. India's victory is not the result of chance or favor, but of persistent negotiation, principled stands, and the refusal to compromise its dignity. This is the same lesson that life teaches every individual. The path to justice is often steep, often lonely, often filled with doubt, but the summit is always worth the climb. No obstacle is permanent, no injustice unbreakable, when the pursuit is guided by the belief that fairness is a right. This triumph also reveals the profound strength of solidarity. India's demand for fairness was amplified by the alliances it built, the partnerships it honored, and the unity it fostered within its people. Justice is rarely won alone. It is achieved when voices come together in a chorus that cannot be ignored. In that sense, the tariff discounts are not only India's victory but humanity's, because they prove again that collective strength bends the arc of history toward fairness. For every citizen who feels small in the face of injustice, this story offers hope. It says that no struggle is too insignificant, no demand for fairness too small, because each step toward justice contributes to the larger march of humanity. If a nation of 1 billion can challenge imbalance and win, then so can an individual who dares to raise their voice. Justice does not require power to begin, it requires courage. And once courage is found, justice follows slowly but surely, until it shines like light breaking through the darkest clouds. India's achievement is thus more than a victory in trade. It is a song of justice that echoes across borders, across generations, and across the very fabric of human struggle. It declares that fairness is not negotiable, that dignity is not optional, and that justice, once pursued with conviction, will always find its way into the world.